Hi and welcome to Reddit Confessions. This is not just a story about betrayal. It's about laughter, the wrong kind, the kind that echoes long after everyone's gone home. Let's begin. It wasn't what she said. It was how fast they laughed. The night cracked open not with an argument or a fight, but with a joke. A perfectly timed, perfectly cruel joke told at our dinner table, between bites of roasted vegetables and red wine. The room lit up in laughter. Forks hit plates. Someone clapped. Someone else nearly spit out their drink. Even the Spotify playlist paused for a beat, like it too needed a second to recover. I didn't laugh. Not because I didn't get it. I got it all too well. Her exact words? At this point, our bed is just a very expensive piece of furniture. The only action it sees is him rolling away from me to update his fantasy football lineup. Boom. Laughter. I smiled wide, thin, forced. I stabbed a roasted carrot and focused on not flinching. Meanwhile, the punchline of my wife's comedy set kept topping off wine glasses, blowing kisses, and owning the moment like she'd just nailed a stand-up gig at a Netflix taping. I was the punchline, not for the first time, but this time, I noticed, because that wasn't the first joke she's told about our bed. But it was the first one where I realized I wasn't just being teased. I was being erased. Everyone always said Callie was sharp, quick-witted, a riot, and she is. She knows how to own a room, how to carve it up with charm and sprinkle just enough self-deprecation to come off endearing. But lately, her jokes have felt less like humor and more like slow dissection. And the only one bleeding was me. We weren't always like this. But no, I won't waste your time with nostalgia. This isn't a scrapbook. It's a confession. I'm the kind of guy who hears a glass clink and automatically starts calculating how long it'll take before someone needs help cleaning up. The kind who checks the thermostat twice before bed. The kind who believes in apology texts even when I didn't do anything wrong. I'm gentle. At least that's what she used to call it. But gentle becomes boring. And boring becomes a stage. A few months ago, she started a couple storytime series on her TikTok. Nothing too big. A few thousand followers. First, it was fun. Harmless stories. Cringe honeymoon tales. But then came the jokes about our intimacy. Or lack of. Then came funny reenactments about how I fall asleep during movies. About how I ask permission to kiss like a middle schooler. About how I fold socks, like I'm proposing to them. I laughed then, too. In the background. Off camera. Like a sound effect. But this time, at the table, something inside me didn't want to laugh anymore. After dinner, while she showed her friends some dumb Instagram reel in the living room, I walked into our bedroom, the one she joked about, and just stood there, stared at the bed. The pillows we never moved anymore. The untouched nightstand drawer. The faint smell of her lavender lotion on the sheets. I realized something. Our bed hadn't seen affection in months. Not real affection. Not the kind where you stay in the moment and forget your phone exists. Not the kind where hands wander because they want to, not because they're obligated to. Not since she stopped touching me without making a comment right after. That bed, the one she made into a punchline, was the last place I felt like a man in this marriage. And now, it was just where I slept. Alone, even when she was next to me. So no, I didn't yell. I didn't ruin the dinner. I didn't confront her in front of everyone and demand she stop turning my insecurities into applause lines. I just listened, laughed politely, then excused myself, went into the office, and pulled open the folder I swore I'd never touch, labeled, "If It Ever Happens." And the craziest part? I didn't even cry. Not yet. The next morning, she was glowing. Literally glowing. Like the after-party lived inside her skin. She hummed some indie pop song as she cleaned up the wine glasses, smiling like she'd just delivered the best performance of her life. I sat at the kitchen table pretending to read the news, my untouched coffee going cold. She didn't seem to notice the silence. Or maybe she did and chose to ignore it, the way she's learned to ignore anything that doesn't fit the brand of us she's built online. At one point she said, "Hey, babe, did you see everyone's comments on the reel I posted last night? That joke killed." I looked up. "Yeah," I said. "It did." And that was it. No follow-up. No apology. No pause. Just a smile and a bite of toast. As if she hadn't just reduced the intimacy of our marriage into content for other people to double-tap. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that I had stayed up most of the night rereading old messages on my phone. Messages she used to send me when we were first dating. Texts filled with, "Can't wait to see you tonight," and "You make me feel safe." Her words used to feel like blankets. Warm. Secure. Now they felt like props from a play we stopped performing years ago. I also found messages that weren't for me, buried deep in a deleted folder on our shared cloud account. One she forgot I had access to. I found a thread between her and a guy named Drew. I didn't know Drew, but he knew my wife's middle name. He knew she hated thunderstorms. He knew about the scar on her knee from falling off a swing in 3rd grade. He knew things I hadn't heard in years. And worse, he knew things about me. I saw screenshots she sent him, private texts I wrote her, even a picture of me folding laundry with the caption, "How do I make this sexy?" asking for science. His response, "By replacing him with me." Her reply, a laughing emoji, then a heart. You know what that feels like? Like watching your own relationship get repackaged and sent to someone else. Like your bed, your private space, your stupid little safe zone, became her stand-up material and his fantasy. But again, I said nothing. Not yet. That night, she crawled into bed wearing one of those oversized t-shirts she knows I like. The ones that used to drive me crazy in the best way. She kissed my shoulder and asked, "You okay? You've been quiet." I nodded. She leaned in closer and whispered, "Come on. Don't let my little joke get in your head. It's just content, babe." Everyone loved it. Everyone loved it. That phrase rang in my ears long after she fell asleep. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe, and it occurred to me. She didn't even ask if it hurt. She didn't check to see if it bothered me. She didn't look into my eyes during or after the joke. She wasn't looking at me at all. She was looking at them, her audience, her followers, her virtual world. I've become a side character in my own life. The part that kills me is I used to love her ambition. I wanted her to be successful. I was proud when her videos hit milestones, when brands started reaching out, when she got invited to panels and speaking gigs. I even helped her brainstorm captions. I took her photos. I helped her pick hashtags. I believed in her more than I believed in myself. But she used me as a ladder and forgot I was a person. And when you stop seeing your partner as a person, when they become just the husband or the guy I joke about for likes, the marriage dies quietly. The weird thing? There wasn't a big betrayal. No secret hotel receipts. No lipstick on collars. Just slow erosion. Just public laughs at private pain. Just a steady stream of "it's just a joke," and "you're being too sensitive." So that night, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I wrote her a letter. Not a breakup note. Not an angry rant. A letter. Like the kind I used to write her when we were first dating. I left it on her desk, folded neatly with the words, "If you still know how to read between the jokes, read this." Inside, I told her how it felt to be invisible. How it felt to become material. How it felt to be told I was loved, but never listened to. I told her I knew about Drew. I told her I wasn't angry. I was just tired. Tired of laughing along. Tired of being the harmless husband no one takes seriously. Tired of our bed being a stage and me being the fool who built it. The next morning, the letter was still there, unopened, and so I packed a bag. Not everything, just enough to leave quietly. My laptop, a few shirts, the photo of us in Iceland before all of this. I left the keys on the counter, and I walked out the door. Not forever, not yet, but far enough away that, for the first time in years, I could breathe without feeling like a setup to someone else's punchline. Took her 13 hours to notice I was gone. 13 hours. Not minutes. Not even just a few hours. 13. I counted. When I walked out that morning, I left without a dramatic goodbye. No slammed doors. No suitcase dragging behind me. No post-it note taped to the mirror. Just silence. The same silence I'd been living in for the past year. Only now it was deliberate. I checked into a hotel 15 minutes from our house. One of those quiet, no-frills places with beige walls and carpets that never quite feel clean. But I didn't care. I wasn't looking for luxury. I was looking for distance. For the first time in years, I didn't have to listen for her footsteps or time my movements around her moods. I was just me, pathetic, alone, and weirdly free. I spent most of that first day staring at the ceiling fan. That dumb ceiling fan. Why do hotel fans always squeak like they're whispering secrets you don't want to hear? Around 11 a.m., I texted her. Not a message to say goodbye, just a test. Hey, did you get my note? No reply. At noon, I watched her Instagram story. She posted a sponsored ad about some protein granola and then followed it up with a boomerang of her clinking a mimosa with a friend. Self-care brunch, the caption read. I guess noticing your husband's absence doesn't count as self-care anymore. The truth is, I wasn't even surprised. I had become so invisible in our life together that my actual disappearance barely registered. I imagined her walking past the letter 3 times without seeing it. Probably thinking it was a bill or one of those notes she writes to herself about content ideas. Buy matching mugs. Ask followers if anyone else hates cuddling. That last one was real. She'd posted that once. It got over 12K likes. By the time the sun started setting, I had convinced myself she wouldn't call at all. Then, finally, at 9:17 p.m., my phone lit up. Callie, 20 missed calls. Callie, text Sherm? Where are you? I didn't answer. I stared at the screen until it dimmed, then read the message again. Not are you okay? Not I'm sorry. Just where are you? Like I was a misplaced credit card. Like I was something she assumed would always be where she left it. Another text came in 2 minutes later. Callie, what is this letter supposed to be? Some dramatic pity thing? Why would you just leave without talking to me? I didn't reply. She called again, 5 times in a row. I turned my phone face down on the nightstand. I'm not proud of that part. I know I probably should have picked up. I should have faced the confrontation. But after years of being the guy who always yielded, always de-escalated, always made her comfort the priority, it felt like the first small act of rebellion. To choose peace over explanation. Stillness over justification. I expected the panic to hit me. I expected guilt to crawl under my skin like it always did after our fights. But it didn't come. Instead, I remembered something. 2 years ago, I was in the ER with a kidney stone. Callie was at a retreat. I called her 3 times before she finally answered. You know what she said? Babe, you'll be fine. Just drink water and let the nurses handle it. I have to speak in 15. That memory came rushing back like a punch to the gut. I realized I had been disappearing in pieces long before I packed that bag. I had been fading from her world with every unreturned call. Every joke made at my expense. Every time she told a crowd I was the boring one, and they all laughed like it was some charming flaw. By midnight, she'd left another dozen messages. Some angry, some sarcastic. One just said, wow. But then came the one that hit hardest. Callie, if you wanted to embarrass me, congrats. Everyone is asking where you are. I look like an idiot. And there it was. Not hurt, not regret, not even confusion. Just damage control. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about how it looked. I should have been heartbroken, but instead, I laughed. A dry, empty laugh that made my throat hurt. The irony of it all. She'd spent years turning me into a joke. And now the silence I left behind was funnier than anything she'd ever said. The next morning, I did something petty. I won't lie. I posted something on my own page. Just a photo of my coffee next to a folded hotel pamphlet with the caption. Sometimes, the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. No tags, no drama, no names. But I knew she'd see it. And she did. Because 2 minutes later, she texted me. Seriously? Now you're doing vague posts? Wow. No apology. No reflection. Just projection. And suddenly, I knew I had made the right choice. I didn't want to hurt her. I didn't want revenge. I wasn't trying to flip the script and become the villain in her feed. I just wanted her to see me, to really see me. But now I realize she never did. 2 days passed before I saw her in person again. And no, it wasn't because I planned it. It was because she tracked me down. I had stayed in that bland hotel room longer than expected. Part of me thought she'd cool off, maybe reflect, maybe even reach out with something other than passive-aggressive texts and emojis. But no. Instead, I watched her curate her panic-like content. A soft-filtered video titled, "Sometimes the ones you love hurt you the most," with an acoustic cover of some trending sad song layered under it. She didn't mention me by name, of course, but the comments filled in the blanks for her. "Girl, I hope you're okay. He doesn't deserve you. You're so strong for being vulnerable. Men always leave when it's not about them." I didn't respond. I didn't post anything. I just watched as strangers, thousands of them, gave her sympathy she hadn't earned. And still, not one private message to ask how I was really doing. Not one phone call that started with, "Can we talk?" Only messages that ended with, "This is so dramatic of you." But she knew I'd been using my credit card at the hotel. I hadn't even tried to hide it. And around 4 p.m. on Sunday, I heard a knock on the door. I knew it was her. When I opened it, she wasn't crying. She wasn't apologetic. She looked annoyed. She stepped in without waiting to be invited, arms folded like she was entering a courtroom instead of a hotel room. "Is this seriously what you're doing now?" she asked. "Running away and playing victim?" That word, victim, hit harder than anything else she could have said. I stood there, motionless, while she looked around the room like she was trying to find evidence of some betrayal. Her eyes landed on my notebook, the one I'd been journaling in since I left, and she snatched it up before I could stop her. "Are you writing about me now?" she said, flipping through pages. "Are you going to turn me into your content?" And that's when I snapped, but not the way you think. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't accuse. I sat down on the edge of the bed, took a deep breath and said, "I don't need to turn you into content. You already did that to yourself." She froze. I don't think she was expecting me to sound so calm. I think she was prepared for a fight. A scene she could later describe to her friends or followers, complete with fake tears and all the details that made her look like the misunderstood wife. But instead, she got honesty. I told her everything. I told her about how I'd been slowly drowning in our marriage for years, how I felt like an accessory to her brand, how she chipped away at my confidence every time she posted a joke at my expense, disguised as relatable humor. I told her about Drew, about the texts, about the screenshots. I didn't scream. I didn't curse. I just laid it all out, like a slow, painful confession at the end of a very long performance. She didn't deny any of it. Not the jokes, not the texts, not even the part where she admitted to sharing our arguments with her online community. Framed, of course, to make herself look empowered. Her defense? People like honesty. They relate to messy marriages. I looked her in the eyes and said, "Then you should have married one of your followers." She didn't say anything after that. She just stood there, notebook still in hand, unsure whether to drop it or throw it. I think in that moment, she realized she couldn't spin this. There were no filters, no hashtags, no quirky soundtracks to soften the blow. It was just me, her husband, telling her she wasn't funny anymore. Not to me. Not when the joke cost me my dignity. She left without saying goodbye. Just walked out and let the door click behind her like it was sealing something shut. I stared at that door for a long time, waiting for her to come back. But she didn't. And for the first time since I left home, I finally cried. Not because I missed her, but because I knew I never really had her. Not the version of her that mattered. Not the one she gave to the world. That woman belonged to the audience, to the comments, to the likes and reposts and digital hugs. The woman I married, she disappeared the moment the camera turned on. Later that night, I got a text from an unknown number. A burner, maybe. The message read, "Hope you enjoy the attention. You finally got your moment." I stared at it, confused. Then I opened Instagram, and I saw it. A video. Her, crying. Title, When the person you trusted most walks away like you're nothing. Over 86,000 likes. Thousands of comments. My disappearance had become her next storyline. And somehow, she still didn't see the irony. She said I walked away like she was nothing. But the truth is, I walked away because that's exactly how she treated me for years. The video blew up faster than I expected. I woke up the next morning to dozens of notifications from people I hadn't heard from in years. Coworkers, college friends, even my sister who lives halfway across the country. Everyone was sending me the same link. Is this about you? Dude, you okay? She really posted this? I clicked the link, even though I knew exactly what it was. It was a close-up of Callie's tear-streaked face. The lighting just dim enough to feel raw, background music subtle enough to make it feel like a documentary. She looked into the camera like a woman who had been abandoned, betrayed, emotionally shattered. She didn't say my name, of course, but her caption gave away enough. When you give your heart to someone who only ever wanted your silence. I watched her blink slowly into the lens like she was waiting for sympathy to pour in. And it did. The comments section was filled with the usual predictable junk. You deserve better, Queen. Some men don't know how to handle strong women. He's clearly intimidated by your success. What none of them knew was that just 24 hours earlier, she stood in my hotel room, flipping through my journal like it was a punchline, accusing me of playing the victim while completely ignoring her own role in all of this. But that's how it always went with her. Public Callie was soft and wounded. Private Callie was sharp-edged and cold. The queen of reframing, a master of narrative. But something was different this time. When I scrolled down far enough in the comments, I started noticing a shift. Not a big one, but it was there, a few voices cutting through the echo chamber. Wait, is this the same guy you joked about last week at that dinner? Didn't she say their bed was furniture a few days ago? Kinda cold. Imagine posting about heartbreak when you made content out of humiliating him. And then one comment from a user named @BarefootDaisy stood out. I used to admire you, but I think you confuse honesty with humiliation. It's not brave to turn your husband into a meme just because people clap for it. It had nearly 6,000 likes. That's when I realized the curtain was starting to slip. For the first time, people were beginning to see the disconnect between the image she projected and the truth underneath. And the more she tried to tighten her grip on the narrative, the more people began to look for the seams. She must have seen the shift too, because a few hours later she posted a follow-up, a carefully lit clip of her talking directly to the camera in a hoodie, hair messy in just the right way. She talked about emotional neglect, about feeling like she had to make jokes to cope, about how I stopped showing her affection years ago. She said, if you've ever felt alone in your marriage, you'll understand why I did what I did. I just wanted to be heard. But I had heard her. That was the problem. I heard every dig, every punchline, every time she turned my vulnerability into clickbait. I heard it when she said I was boring. I heard it when she said our bed was just a piece of furniture. I heard it when she laughed with her friends while I stared at my plate, pretending it didn't matter. She had been heard. She just never bothered to listen. By the afternoon, I had 4 interview requests in my inbox, 2 podcasts, a men's mental health platform. Even some influencer gossip account wanted to hear my side. But I ignored them all. I didn't want to go viral. I didn't want to play her game in reverse. I just wanted peace, silence, anonymity. But peace doesn't come easy when you've been turned into content. That night, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally I wouldn't pick up, but I had a feeling. It was Lacey, Callie's sister. We hadn't spoken in over a year, but her voice cracked the moment she said my name. Sherm, I just saw the video. I had no idea. I thought you were okay all this time. I told her I wasn't okay. I hadn't been okay for years, but I had convinced myself that loving someone meant enduring them, even when it hurt, even when they stopped being your partner and became your audience. She sighed and said something I'll never forget. She's always been good at shaping the story, but she's never been good at seeing the damage it leaves behind. Then she asked me if I wanted to know the part Callie left out. And what she told me next nearly dropped the phone out of my hand. It wasn't just the jokes. It wasn't just Drew. There was something else. Something that would finally, irreversibly explain everything. Lacey's voice was shaking, and not in the dramatic, performative way I'd grown used to with Callie. This was the kind of shake you hear when someone is debating whether to rip off the bandage or leave you blissfully ignorant a little longer. But I'd walked out the door already. I'd broken the rules. I deserved to know the whole story, not just the curated version. So I told her, say it, whatever it is. Just say it. There was a long pause. Then, she's been lying about the miscarriage. My whole body stiffened. I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't hear her, but because my brain was trying to rewind time, trying to find the moment that sentence could make sense. 2 years ago, Callie told me she was pregnant. It was a Tuesday. She left a positive test on the bathroom sink with a little note that said, "Ready for the next chapter?" I remember shaking when I picked it up. I remember my knees actually giving out, sitting right there on the cold tile floor, laughing and crying like someone who just won the lottery in the middle of a funeral. I thought everything was going to change. I thought this would finally be our anchor, the thing that would draw us back together. We told Lacey. We told her mom. We hadn't told many others yet when Callie came into our room one night, pale and shaking, and said, "It's gone." Just like that. No build-up. No details. Just a blank stare and those 2 words. I didn't press her. I thought pressing would be cruel. She didn't want to talk about it, and I wasn't going to be the guy who demanded proof of heartbreak. But now, Lacey was telling me there was no pregnancy, no doctor's visit, no follow-up, nothing. She lied, Sherm, Lacey said again, softer this time. She told me it was part of a brand pitch. She wanted to test engagement on a motherhood series idea. Said she needed to see how her audience would respond to a journey from pregnancy to loss before committing to it. And then she spun it into reality with you. I felt cold. Not angry. Not devastated. Just hollow. Like something had been extracted from me without anesthesia. Lacey kept talking, like she needed to unburden herself all at once before I changed my mind. She told me she never expected you to take it so seriously. She said you cried on the floor, and that she felt bad for you, but didn't want to ruin the content arc. And when I told her to stop, she said, "It's fine. He needs something to feel close to me again anyway." I couldn't speak. There's one thing to be used for a joke. It's another to realize your grief was manufactured, not just tolerated, but crafted. That my pain, the nights I held her and told her we'd get through it, the hours I spent researching support groups and therapy options, all of it was a response to a fiction she wrote for clout. Suddenly, all those subtle moments from the past 2 years came rushing back. Her flat effect when I brought up the what-ifs, the way she'd changed the subject when I mentioned trying again, how she'd always say someday maybe and then never elaborate. I thought she was protecting herself. She was protecting a lie. I sat there on the edge of the hotel bed, phone in one hand, the other clamped to my mouth, afraid if I opened it I'd scream. "Why are you telling me this now?" I finally asked. "Because I watched your face in that video," Lacey said. "And for the first time, I realized you weren't just sad. You were lost. Like someone had erased your whole story and handed you someone else's script. And I couldn't be part of it anymore." I thanked her. I don't even remember how I ended the call. I just remember staring at the wall for hours after, trying to feel anything other than sick. She faked a pregnancy. She faked a loss. For engagement. For likes. For content. How do you process that? What do you even do with that? I opened my laptop. I stared at the blank document, trying to decide if I should post something. Out her. Expose everything. But I couldn't. Not yet. I didn't want to get pulled into a public tit-for-tat. I wasn't built for online wars and duets and reactions. I just wanted to be heard, honestly, for once. Not by millions of strangers, but by myself. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked to a 24-hour diner nearby, sat in a booth by the window, and ordered a coffee I didn't drink. The waitress didn't recognize me. No one stared. No one knew me as the guy from Callie's story. I was just a tired man in a hoodie, sitting in silence. And for the first time in years, I didn't miss her. I missed who she used to be. I missed who I thought I was when she loved me. But her love was a script. Her sympathy was a prop. And the entire time I thought I was building a life with someone, she was building an audience, and I was just the relatable supporting character. That bed she joked about? She never wanted to share it with me again. She wanted to sell it in pixels, captions, hashtags. And I finally understood. It was never our story. It was always her show. It was a Tuesday, the same day of the week she had once told me she was pregnant. I remember that so clearly now, not because of what she said, but because of how ordinary the day had felt before it. And maybe that's what hurts most. How she turned something as quiet as a Tuesday into a day I'd never forget. So, I chose Tuesday to be the day I took something back. Not for show, not for revenge, but to make it real again. To remind myself that I was still a person, not a storyline. I left the hotel just after noon and drove back home. Not to talk, not to explain, just to gather. I still had a key, though I expected it wouldn't work. It did. She hadn't changed the locks. Not yet. When I stepped inside, it was as if nothing had happened. Same smell, lavender and white tea candles. Same soft jazz playing in the kitchen, because she thought background music made her home feel like a movie set. Her phone was sitting on the counter, screen lighting up with a stream of notifications. She was filming upstairs. I could hear the faint echo of her content voice. That bright, overly animated tone she reserved for followers, not for me. She was still in character, even after everything. I didn't call her name. I didn't leave a note. I just walked into the living room and looked around. At the photos, the decor, the carefully curated little shelf full of books she'd never read but kept for aesthetics. I started with my things. My records, my telescope, the chess set my grandfather gave me, still packed in the box because she said it didn't match the vibe. I packed up my tools from the garage. My old college hoodie that had been collecting dust in the back of the coat closet. My notebooks, my backup drives. And the one photo of us I still cared about, the one taken before her first platform deal, before she found out how quickly she could monetize attention. It was us at the beach. No makeup, no lights, just wind, water, and genuine smiles. Then I made one more stop. The bedroom. Our bedroom. I stood there for a long moment. That bed, the one she joked about, the one that became a viral punchline, was still made perfectly. Staged. Too many pillows. The duvet folded just so. I walked to the closet and opened the door. Inside, her things dominated every corner. But in the back, behind a rolling organizer of handbags and gift bags she'd been sent for free, was an old lockbox. My lockbox. I pulled it out, and inside was exactly what I remembered. Our marriage license, a few old letters I'd written her, and a small velvet ring box that hadn't been opened in years. It still held the backup band, the one she said was too plain for content, so she replaced it with a designer one a brand gave her. I took the box. Not for the ring, but because it reminded me that once all of this was real. I locked the box and walked downstairs. That's when I heard the camera turn off. Her voice changed. Footsteps. She was coming down. I was already at the door when she saw me. Her face froze. She didn't speak right away, but her expression said enough. Shock, confusion, maybe a flicker of panic. "What are you doing here?" she finally asked. "Getting my life back," I replied, calm as glass. She crossed her arms. "You can't just show up here and grab stuff without saying anything." I nodded. "You're right. I can't just do that. So I'll say this, I'm done. You can keep the lights, the filters, the curated grief. I'm keeping what's real." She stepped forward. "You don't get to decide what's real." I looked her in the eyes and said the hardest thing I've ever said in my life. "You haven't been real in years." There it was. No shouting. No insults. Just truth. Unpolished. Undeniable. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She didn't even reach for me. She just stood there, frozen, as I walked out with a single duffel bag and a cardboard box full of things that only mattered to me. Not her brand. Not her followers. Me. I drove to a small town an hour away. I found a short-term rental that didn't have Wi-Fi, and for once, that was perfect. No tags. No comments. No curated narratives. Just a quiet little place with peeling paint and a crooked mailbox. And not a single person who cared about how I folded my socks or whether I made enough money to be worth keeping. That night, I sat by the window, ring box in one hand, and wrote the first journal entry that felt like it was mine. Not hers. Not for an audience. Not for content. Just a record of what it felt like to finally walk away from a stage I didn't sign up for. I didn't post it. I didn't need to, because for the first time in years, I wasn't the punchline. It's been 3 months since I left the house. The set, really, and started over. I'm writing this now not from a hotel room or a dimly lit apartment with echoing silence, but from a small workshop I rented in a coastal town no one cares to film in. It smells like wood shavings and strong coffee. There's no ring light in the corner. No camera mounted on a tripod. No white backdrop pretending to be a perfect life. Just me. And that's enough now. When I walked away from Cali, I thought the absence would destroy me. I expected the guilt to come roaring back, to convince me I overreacted, to convince me to crawl back into her narrative. But the longer I stayed gone, the clearer it all became. There's a strange clarity that comes with silence, with not needing to explain yourself to thousands of strangers who only know you through someone else's caption. I never outed her. I never exposed the lie about the pregnancy or the fake loss. That secret belongs to her, and if it ever comes out, it'll be because she lets it slip, or someone else finally says enough. My peace didn't need to come from revenge. Came from withdrawal. From taking my story out of her hands and writing the rest on my own terms. I took a job with a small tech company nearby. No corner office. No big paycheck. But my manager knows my name. The people I work with talk to me. Not at me. I started running again. Not for show. Not to post my progress. Just to feel the weight leave my lungs. I even met someone. No, not like that. Not romantically. Not yet. Her name's June. She runs the local bookstore I accidentally walked into while looking for coffee. She didn't know who I was. Didn't care. She made a sarcastic remark about my choice in bookmarks, and I laughed, really laughed, not the quiet please like me laugh I used to offer up like a sacrifice. We talk sometimes. She recommended a novel last week and asked, "Do you still remember how to read something for yourself?" That question stuck with me. Callie still posts. The tone has changed a bit. She's pivoted to healing content, quotes about rediscovery and emotional growth. I see clips sometimes when someone sends them my way. It used to sting. Now it just feels far. Like something that used to be mine but never really fit. She hasn't contacted me again. I think she knows I'm not coming back. There's no audience left to manipulate. I took that with me when I stopped clapping along. And that bed, the one she used for her punchline? I saw in a listing last week that she's redecorating. New style. New furniture. I hope she finds whatever version of herself she's been chasing. I really do. But I also hope one day she remembers the difference between attention and love. As for me, I sleep just fine now. Alone. Peacefully. On a mattress I bought secondhand from a guy who said, "It's a little worn in, but it's solid." Same. Sometimes we don't need to replace everything. Just remove the parts that made us feel like we were something to be laughed at instead of someone to be seen. I don't know who needed to hear this. Maybe no one. Maybe someone like me. Someone whose voice got lost in applause they didn't ask for. But if you made it this far, hi, I see you. And you're not the joke. You were just in the wrong story. Thank you for following this journey on Reddit Confessions. If something in this story reminded you of a moment you finally stood up for yourself, or one you wish you had, share it in the comments. Your words matter here. Let's remind each other we're not alone in the quiet parts. Until next time.